Welcome back to Open Your Eyes, and we're moving into our first segment for the morning. Economic Development Council embracing innovation for economic prosperity. Actually, the Prime Minister will be having his business forum. It's going to be tomorrow, the 21st day of February. But we've got folks in to talk to us, to talk all about it to us. We've got, as a matter of fact, Ishmael Quiroz, who is the Executive Director of Economic Development Council. Good morning, sir. We have in the middle, Mrs. Glynis Alexander Tam, who is the General Manager of InfoLink Services Limited of Trinidad and Tobago. So good morning as well to you.
Good morning.
And Mr. Linnar Viik, Director of the Smart Government Program, E-Government Academy of Estonia. My gosh. Guys, good morning.
Hello.
Welcome.
Hi.
It's so nice to have you in.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, great to be here.
So let's get on into it. I was reading about it this morning, very early actually, and it brought to me light, which is of course in a good way, of how our country will eventually rise to the occasion of everybody being on par with what's going on with government, how this work, how that work, and the ease of lines across the country. Ishmael, tell us about it.
Thank you so much. In connection with the Prime Minister's Business Forum, which is being held under the theme Embracing Innovation for Economic Prosperity, the message and the point is that innovation is so important if we're to foster development. By innovation, what typically comes to mind is digital, digital transformation in technology. But it's not necessarily the do-all and end-all of innovation. Innovation simply means doing things differently.
Yeah.
And so especially in the delivery of government services for the business community, we all know that things need to be improved, things need to become more efficient in order for the business community to be able to move faster, to invest, to grow. And so it's important to kind of just bring about so those key changes that are essential for moving forward. One of the ways in which we can do this is through digital transformation and the use of technology.
Now, you're one of the key persons in the private-public partnership that was established between the government and the private sector. This has been a recurring issue brought out by the private sector. What's been the consultation with them so far in finding out where their specific needs are and how this particular forum can help them find solutions?
Yes. So in the evolution of the EDC and the reform work that we've taken on, we've been able to identify the burning issues of the time, and we've been able to really work together with different ministries and agencies to bring about efficiencies, and you do that through the consultation between the public and private sector to find that middle ground. But it is evident that in order for us to accelerate change and propel the improvements and the efficiencies that we do need, we do have to try things, try different things. And hence the reason why emphasis on, for example, things like e-government is important, because through the incorporation or integration of technology, your government can actually begin to deliver some services by simplifying bureaucracies and then avoiding things that shouldn't be practiced in the course of government's delivery of services. And so in identifying and renewing what exactly are the problems, we're trying to see how we can actually use technology to do better.
And the format for the forum includes two guest speakers who we have with us on set. And I want to find out just a bit more about your own personal background. And Linnar, let's start off with you talking about the implementation of the e-government system in Estonia itself and your involvement.
I have been personally advising Estonian government over the last 20 years already on digital transformation, which started with just plain understanding how government can use computers in early 1990s when we regained our independence from Soviet Union. And after that, it became more than just making civil servants working with computers. It became into internet-based services, and there became not only economic rationale, making government working faster, more efficiency, but it became also understandable that with government, also private sector can enhance its services and make its services more digital and bringing society into a different level. So it's not only making government working by use of information and communication technologies. But bringing in banking sector, bringing in industry, bringing in tourism sector, logistics, transportation, all the sectors can innovate by using also digital technologies, making things differently together, not by alone, but together makes the process much more coherent and inclusive.
Well, I sit in the middle.
That's why we put you there.
Literally and figuratively. Now, I operate in a space that's a lot more niche because I'm in private sector.
Okay.
And the company that I run, Inflink Services, we are the debit payment switch. So we process local debit transactions for Trinidad and Tobago. Now, so my focus really on this forum is about digital payments and the impact that and the potential impact that it can have on development for any country, and particularly as in Trinidad we are actually living what Ishmael is just speaking about, where they want to go. We are living it literally now, where you're seeing the convergence of technology and the demands of a population need for more services, better improvements for delivery of services from government and from private sector. Because don't feel that it's a government problem, it's also a private sector problem, where you need to deliver services and you have a population that's out there in the global space, traveling heavily, going to metropolitan cities and seeing what can happen and coming back and demanding why we can't get this. Right? But need to understand that it's not that simple for that transformation. It takes everyone to be on the same page. Okay? We look at our World Economic Forum rankings in innovation and in technology and all those things as a country, and we are seeing incremental movement, but it takes a lot for moving, right? And we need to understand the implications and the impact of globalization on us for that, and what it takes to move the country further with all hands on deck. It's a challenge and it's a lot of work.
And I appreciate that you acknowledge that, because, and especially being in the Caribbean, you understand some of our nuances in terms of the fact that while we travel and we see what are essentially cashless societies, we have, for Belize specifically, a number of tourists coming in who are accustomed to that. But we also have our population that are still fearful of moving beyond their bank passbooks and going into a bank physically itself. What was it like in terms of getting the buy-in across the board?
Well, it's about changing behavior. But at the same time, not leaving people behind. Okay, that is the balance you have to straddle as government and as private sector as well. So what you found is that particularly in the banking world, they've made subtle changes, encouraging that. So moving from the passbook, I don't think we have passbooks anymore. Giving people cards, all right, even for government subsidies. So we moved from government giving people checks for subsidies to putting it directly in accounts and getting people to go in and open accounts. Pension, social services, it's not easy. You can have protests and people with placards outside the place, but in order to change in behavior, you have to start somewhere and you have to draw a line in the sand. And we always use the example of, back in Trinidad, getting an American visa. One day you were lining up to get your visa, the next day you had to go online and fill in everything, press a button, upload your photo to get your visa. At least apply. We haven't gotten it yet, right? Just to start the application process. And people did it overnight without a murmur. Right?
There were businesses that popped up to help people too.
And there were businesses that popped up around from the embassy. You have people take your photos, hold your bag and your purse as a fee because you can't go in the embassy with bags. All of that popped up. A niche business sector popped up because the Americans were no longer taking paper. It's the same thing. We have to do the same thing
And
for us.
I like that you say that, which we've got here as well. But from this slide, we're talking about the public who've got to get into the innovation of things. Now we're talking about this business forum, which we've got to meet with the businesses so they can get on board. What is that like, having to roll this out to them, knowing to them going online could pose some dangers in having our business be online? What is it like having to roll this out to the businesses?
So one of the things that that we're very excited about in regard to the forum is that we have world-class leaders in digital transformation who will be sharing their insights and their experiences. And the first thing is to inspire, right? And to inspire what can happen right now, what is happening right now in other countries.
Yeah.
Yes, there is the importance and the urgency to ensure that citizen data is secure, that transactions are safe, and all of that underlines the point, or is meant to underline the point, that this is something that we need to embrace and we need to move forward and work with. However, remember, cybersecurity laws need to be in place.
Yes.
Education also needs to be up to standard in terms of people in their changing their behavior, to be aware of what things need to be taken into account. And so some of these things will come out in the discussion. What we have is a panel that will talk about what we refer to as innovation ecosystem, representing different elements of what it takes for innovation and change to happen.
Yeah.
And from their perspectives, we're hoping to draw out specific areas of support that the government, that private sector, that academia, that the telecom providers need to all play and come together and be on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's important to acknowledge that while we do feel very antiquated sometimes in Belize, we've made some small steps. So the establishment of CITO was very important, which is or government information technology. We've seen the banking sector move towards their APS system where we can do online transactions so much easier. But the benefit, if we're to look at a silver lining of being so far behind, is that we have others to look at to see what worked, what didn't work, and actually prevent some of the potential challenges that they face. And that's where I want to get Linnar in again, to be able to talk about what that transformation is and what are some of the key things that you would advise Belizeans that they have to have in order before progressing to a fully digital system.
I think one of the key aspects is something what has been repeated here also during the discussion. Things don't happen overnight and by themselves. Innovation is not something which arrives in a big container ships. It's something you do yourself, and you do small things every day. Small things every day matters more than one big thing once a year. So innovation is coming down very much to the kind of communal mental exercise also. And just to look to the kind of timeline also of innovation in Estonia. It's a very small country in Northern Europe, two times bigger in size than Belize, 1.3 million people living. So in some sense one might say, so small country can't survive economically because it's so small. And you need really big resources, natural resources, huge markets. But no, the 21st century has really changed that landscape. The value that you create is created by people, not by oil or by natural resources, but people are the ones who create the value. And this is the biggest difference. So one thing to understand is that every day is a small step further, and incremental change every day means a huge step further in 5 years period and 10 years period. So you need to keep for the vision, which is longer than what I do today. It's a 5 years, 10 years vision, and working towards a vision, including as many partners as possible, and making motivation. We have spoken here also very small niche services which create motivation. If you have 100 of those small services, suddenly you feel that you are living already in a different environment. Similarly in Estonia, We are known by being one of the only countries in the planet Earth where people declare taxes with a smile. Everybody does it online, and if you file your taxes, you get your returns back in less than 24 hours on your bank account. So this is a motivation for people to rush, and so this year also our tax department's online service was virtually inaccessible for people because they limited the service for 10,000 sessions consecutively, and there were hundreds of thousands of people who wanted to do it. So that's one small service. Another small service.
So you're meeting with income tax in Belize today? Just kidding.
But if you have a number of small services, it matters a lot for society.
Yeah.
So it's not one champion service, but many small services that shift really the society.
So more of an incremental rollout as you progress.
Indeed. And there needs to be, of course, an infrastructure for that. Digital infrastructure that supports it.
So
Let's talk about that infrastructure, though, because I think we're living in very interesting times where even as we prepare to make the moves to or to complete or steps in digital transformation, we see across the globe where some of the biggest tech giants are still battling cybersecurity issues. How does that play into a conversation like you'll be having tomorrow?
I think it's a very crucial for all the, not only individuals, but all institutions here.
That's correct. I mean, you will never be in front of the criminals. You're always going to be a step behind. But because they're always going to be looking, as far as you lock down one area, they're going to find another loop. Now, it's about education, and it's from the very simplest things, not only for businesses and government, but also for people, right? This is the world we live in. It's not going to change as you operate in digital space. So persons from the man on the ground all the way up, you have to be aware that once you put things into cyberspace, it can become accessible by anyone. And I mean, you see it with digital photos that go out, viral, etc., good and bad, right? And a lot of it that happen out there is persons who figure it's unintentional when it reaches out there. So it's about education in getting your population to understand that while it's a big pro, there are some cons associated with moving to this space. And it's continuous education. You cannot stop.
But in addition to the kind of awareness in society and the ability to count on the people's knowledge, there is also a role for government and private sector to play. Estonia suffered in 2007 severe cyber attacks. And that was actually an eye-opener, not only for us, but majority of the governments in Europe, Canada, US, who first time witnessed that there is a need for governmental regulatory framework, institutions that deal with that. But most important, which we learned, you can't survive alone. You need partners, you need collaboration, you need like-minded network. So if you are a country like Belize, if you're a country like Trinidad or Tobago, if you're a country like Estonia, you think, who are my partners? Where is also the competence? Who can help me when an attack happens, or with whom I build a coalition, like-minded coalition for secure digital future.
So an integration system for cybersecurity?
This is one thing, also sharing the data, helping each other to deal with the consequences. Those are all the components where right now we can say that our information and digital society is as secure as our capacity to collaborate with our like-minded partners who have also similar cybersecurity institutions.
But you know, Linnar, one of the things that we need to roll out, definitely the educational aspect of things, Mrs. Tam. People will continue to be, especially after listening to that. We've got a country here of well, 400,000, we'll say. And a lot of people might find it so hard, especially because of the these cyber attacks, to jump on board. It might sound like an easy step because it is digital and it's from right there in your home or wherever you want to be. But your advice, Linnar, in terms of rolling these things out and making sure that people have got the trust, and I'm throwing the wrench here because we know how things are in our country, and we know how hard people could swing that bat on what the government is doing, whether it's a good thing, whether it's a bad thing. Linnar, from a country of 1.3 million, 2 times the size of Belize, you've seen it roll out. Trinidad is right there in the middle. What's your advice to Belize in terms of rolling this out and making sure everybody is on board, whether you're afraid or whether you're not?
Count on the fact that the size is your benefit. Actually, small societies can benefit much more in rolling out inclusively.
In what way?
In a way where you are able to discuss to each other and to make sure that what you do has a benefit. There are so many big societies where, well, one might say people became numbers in the databases. In small societies, you can really afford to have a debate and discussion, and this is also what is going to happen tomorrow. Prime Minister's Economic Forum is dedicated not on listening what we are speaking, but is dedicated to mutual conversation, what the participants will speak, where they set. It's not where we did set our goal and vision. It's about where you as a country, you as a society, set your vision for the next 5, 10 years, and innovation plays extremely crucial component on that. And digitalization is just the enabler.
Wow.
When we look at what is necessary, the right environment for innovation, that's what really interests me in discussion, because you do have perhaps one of the most important drivers, the education system or national university. We know more and more that the access to some of the level of education when it comes to ICT, we haven't been keeping up, from lower levels in school right through to university levels. What are you hoping is going to come out of that conversation?
I think absolutely there is the need to keep up, to keep up with the technology and to continuously upgrade our curriculums. Knowing directly what is demanded, in the marketplace, and what the next opportunities are, especially for the youth of the country. And so that, underlining that point, that we have to deliver quality education, not only in regard to ICT, but across the board in terms of all the fields that people study. But curriculum development is essential. That needs to be upgraded. But we will also be showcasing an entrepreneur on that panel who is doing amazing things at a junior college in the north of the country, Quiroz Junior College, where the kids are doing coding, programming, app development. And I think that's indicative of the potential and the energies that are already there and developing. We do need to nurture it though, and we need to encourage it, we need to give them opportunities. All of the people operating in the tech industries. But we also do need to support it with upgraded curricula to make sure that they're exposed to what is going to be useful for them.
Does going for a country to be innovative and going digital, does it create more jobs or does it take away the jobs? And I'm saying this because this is one of the binds so people could know. We're talking about a country of 400,000 like we mentioned, and people definitely want to be on stream. What does it do? Create jobs or eliminate jobs?
I would say on the one hand, as you create efficiencies, you perhaps may need less people to conduct various activities. However, you do add value to existing jobs in terms of upgrading what they are then expected to do. That does then have spin-off effects in terms of enabling other types of industries businesses, jobs, investment attraction to come in and then create more jobs for everybody. One of the things that we have to always be vigilant for is our doing business ranking, how easy it is to do business in Belize. That attracts or scares investors away. As we improve by creating the efficiencies, by making sure that we're efficiently delivering, what we do is put ourselves in a better position to attract more investment, domestic as well as international, to create more business, create more economic activity, and have stimulus in the economy.
And that's a great a response that I want to follow up on, because obviously the Economic Development Council has a purpose. It's to be able to improve the economy of the country. We spoke with the CEO of Trade about the upcoming trade policy, and we looked at agriculture and the productive sector. What does a digital transformation or innovation do to boost the economy?
It's interesting that you should mention agriculture, because what we have, and I'm sure it was mentioned, is a brand new information management system for the agriculture sector, whereby Belize is going to be one of the very first and one of the very few countries that is able to capture national level farmer information using technology to be able to better inform how the Ministry of Agriculture provides technical assistance and advice to farmers, to advise on strategic policy changes that need to be made, and to have direct impact on the farmer, at the farm level, in terms of enabling them to know what they should be producing, when, where they can sell, by linking through the marketplace. And so the application of this technology stands to benefit even the agriculture sector. And this is an example that I think Belize should be quite proud of, because it's actually going to be studied regionally to see how other countries can replicate and scale up. It's one of the benefits of having a small country. We can do it. It's being done, and it's going to be very interesting to monitor.
Let me be a bit of a devil's advocate here. One of the things we're looking at is, the people who really drive change in the country are your leaders. And it can be inspired by pressure from people, but really the decision makers would take the lead. We're looking at an older leaders within our society, and I have just a wonderful flashback of the investigation into Facebook and the questions that were asked to Mark Zuckerberg, just clearly showing there's a disconnect between one generation, what they know and understand about the digital world, and the reality of how it works. How do you foresee, even within the space of the Economic Development Council, ensuring that those who may take the lead in pushing for the transformation will really understand how and why it should be done as well? It
begins through dialogue and mutual understanding, and hence the critical importance of events like the Business Forum, because it's that opportunity to really get to see different perspectives and to know what's important for each. What we do expect and what we do need is the vision, right? The vision that is delivered by the leadership to guide how Belize will transform digitally and embrace innovation. I think with the vision, it ripples. It has ripple effects in terms of what then happens at the other layers of leadership for them to deliver on the change that is needed.
Not a far off situation, right? That I explained.
Not at all. Not at all.
When you go into a high level meeting and you have to explain some of the simple basics of the digital system you're talking about, what's your advice on that?
Well, to Ishmael's point, it's a lot about dialogue. And you have to constantly focus on what's the goal, what's the objective. It's about national development. So it's a recognition, and I mean, we're dealing with people, right? And people have their own take on things, people have their own agendas, right? But it's the requirement of the prime leadership to make sure everybody keeps their eyes on the prize and what's important for the country. It's GDP growth. It's about moving a youthful population forward, because that's a challenge we all face as developing nations in the Caribbean and across the world. The youth element between the ages of the millennial element that we talk about all the time, it's growing phenomenally. and their demands and their expectations are far different from folks who are 20 years older, far less 40 and 50 years older, right? And it's about their welfare, and it's about their participation in the country's development, economically, socially, otherwise, that you have to foster and build upon, because it's cliche, but they are the future, right? So it's about constant dialogue. And to a point about innovation, you also have to remember, as a country, you don't want what we have suffered historically is about brain drain, right? Because you have to make sure that you've created new jobs that we don't know that even will exist.
Yeah.
But you would have facilitated and created a platform that those jobs could build on and be created upon, right? You can't foresee, right, about what's going to come. But it's about keeping the population fully engaged to want to buy into this and to want to create opportunities for themselves and to grow the pie. That's what it's about,
Yeah.
It's about growing the pie so that everyone could benefit, right? And we have to keep focus on that. And it's going to be a challenge because our histories are the same Caribbean-wise, right? We all live it.
Yeah.
We're seeing it from Jamaica to Trinidad down across Belize, Ghana, and Suriname. We're living it. But we got to keep about the prize and live in hope and constantly talk. And there's something that we need to do is collaborate. That is the secret to the success, It's about collaboration. Academia, business, and government, it's about that collaboration. We have to stop feeling that we have to keep all the information and keep the data. We have to share it.
That's to share it.
Right? That's the only way we'll build.
We have to trust the system to
You have
share.
to trust the system to share.
And that's one of we're getting ready to wrap up soon, but one of the questions I have is, how does this address what we know to be an issue? So we have a paper-driven system. We spoke with Family Court. They're still doing receipts on paper for maintenance fees. So we know that there's a lot of ways people can circumvent systems that are in place to prevent corruption. And when you have this human paper interaction, that's where a lot of things can change. Will a digital transformation reduce or improve or increase our risks of having some of the unwanted processes included in any kind of transaction?
The inherent obligation for transparency in terms of accountability and knowing who did which transaction when you're doing a digital process lends to addressing the issue of corruption, because there's that digital trail that you cannot deny. There are new technologies being developed, such as blockchain technology, that are that open ledger system for everybody to see. If you incorporate that concept, not necessarily for Bitcoin or anything like that, but the concept in how some of these public services are processed, I think you can begin to address the issues of what the unnecessary procedures that shouldn't be there. And I think Linnar has the perfect line in terms of your famous line in terms of digital.
Well, in Estonia at least, digital is original, paper is a copy. And what comes to the corruption, I don't know how big issue it is in Belize, but you can't bribe the computer. This is very simple. If you have digital system, everybody is equal. You don't have, and everybody, there are no lines, no queues to go, nobody to bribe to get your first to be served. Everybody is equal, and you can't bribe the computer. The public services in digital form are equally accessible for everybody. And it's not just efficiency. Really, it can help also to shift the society's couple of mental paradigms. One could be also, if needed, the topic of corruption. It creates further transparency and eliminates corruption.
That's an uplifting note to end on.
Indeed. Indeed.
And just to close off, we have the forum taking place tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's a closed event.
It's an invitation only, but it will be live streamed for the very first time. So the very first time the business forum by the Prime Minister's Business Forum is going to be live streamed on the Government Press Office's Facebook page. So please, everybody is welcome to view that, to post comments. We'll also be launching a You Reform Belize app, a mobile application that has been developed here in Belize for improving the access of the people to the government in terms of submitting reports, requests for information and updates. And,
great.
And you have two very interesting panel discussions as well as two great guest speakers, and we appreciate you coming in and just giving us a preview as to what you're going to share tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we'll be talking to Diana Shaw of the Child Development Fund about the organization's 10th anniversary. So stay tuned.